everyone says same old Jets. These guys are going to fight no matter what the situation is. There's no give up in them. I hate that term. And I really don't know what that term means, but I know this. They're not the same old Jets.
I'm going to go for a minute here, Zach, because I'm going to be honest with you, dude. Like, Aaron Glenn dancing up and down the sideline after the Will McDonald kick return, that doesn't, punt return, punt block, that doesn't bother me in any way, shape, or form. I don't care about the clapping that much after the game. But going into this season, dude, it was finally supposed to be about not saying it anymore. It was finally going to be about doing it, because ever since I've been covering this Jets team, I've heard and they've said all of the right things about it's going to be different this time. We're not the same old Jets. It's going to be different. It's going to be different. It's going to be different. And guess what? It never is different. So I know Aaron Glenn might not know what the same old Jets are, so I'll give him a clue. What happened in that game yesterday, that was the same old Jets, because I've covered that game a dozen times throughout my career. You know what that game looked a lot like? The Jets-Patriots game a year ago where they lost the game they shouldn't. The Jets-Colts game a year ago. The Jets-Vikings game a year ago. The Chiefs game 2 years ago. Countless games under Adam Gase. Countless games over Todd Bowles, who is now on the other sideline. This is what the Jets do. They come out lackluster. They come out lifeless. They fall behind. They can sometimes crawl themselves back, but in the end, they lose. That Will McDonald play should have been one of the greatest moments in recent memory for this team. And what happened afterwards? You watched Baker Mayfield walk right on down the field because this defense is a disaster, and it cost the Jets a game. Their in-game decision-making cost this team again, like going for it on 4th and 12 and throwing a 9-yard pass. The penalties, egregious penalties, the penalty, like the one on Will McDonald and the Arian Smith procedural stuff. All this stuff is supposed to be gone because the Jets have said it's gone. Guess what? It's not, because they keep doing it, and it's costing them again. And I don't want to hear it anymore. I said it going into this year. Show me. Finally, show me you are different. They're not showing me they're any different. They look like the same team they've been the last couple of years, and it is so frustrating to hear that. We're not the same old Jets. Dude, you look like it.
Hey Connor, how's it going? It's good to see you, buddy. You know,
good man, good. And I wasn't even sunny. I wasn't in sunny Tampa. You were, so that was probably why.
It was very sunny. Look, I guess we're addressing that right off the top. So I'll say, I agree with you. Like, they never just stop saying it out loud. Honestly, like, because Saleh fell into that trap all the time. How he hated that so much. I think my favorite part of that quote.
They don't do anything to change it.
My favorite part of that quote is Aaron Glenn saying, "I hate that. I don't know what that is, but we're not that." Like, so you do know what it is. You don't have to pretend like you don't know what it is. Look, like, to your point, yeah, like, they need to prove that they're not the same old Jets. I don't blame, I know Aaron Glenn maybe got some criticism for being overly positive. We fought hard to the end, no moral victories, but, we can have stuff to, like, I don't blame him at all for that. This is a young team that's 0-3. They need something to build on. They clearly are not a team that's going to compete for the playoffs. They said they're going to, when this group was hired, they said they wanted to win, and they wanted to win now. That's not true. They're not going to win now. Like, this is not a team that's built to win right now, because when you lose Jermaine Johnson and you lose Josh Reynolds, that shouldn't deplete your roster to the way that it has. And so they're not ready to compete in the way that they need to be. Aaron Glenn is coming in here as someone who hasn't been here for the last 14 years. You have been here for most of them. I've only been here for a few. Most of this beat has been there for most of it. This fan base has been there since long before this 14-year stretch. So they've dealt with all the coaches saying this isn't an instant coffee situation. This isn't the same old Jets. We're different. They fought to the end. We just have to fix, this mistake or that mistake. We just have to fix this. We have to, like, it's verbatim. It's verbatim the things that we've been hearing for so long. And to your point, I'm tired of hearing the same stuff every week. More than that, I'm tired of watching bad football. So yeah, I'd like some good football.
They didn't fight till the end, Zach, because if they fought till the end, they wouldn't have been the hole that they had to dig themselves out of in the fourth quarter. And spoiler alert, they were aided by Todd Bowles, who completely called the dogs back, and we'll get to that later on in the show. But that's why the Jets were able to get back in this thing. Yeah, give them credit for not going belly up and just kneeing the ball and basically doing what they did a week ago against the Buffalo Bills. But this was a team that from the first and second and third quarter were horrific and awful on, I guess defense kind of held their own at different points, really aided just by Tampa Bay penalties. But it was just a bad game that, because the Buccaneers basically thought they had it, allowed the Jets get to back into it. So just real quick, fast recap. We've kind of touched upon it, though. 29-27, the final score. Jets fall behind. Jets claw their way back. Buccaneers, the ridiculous field goal blocked by Will McDonald to pick it up, run it in. You think the Jets are going to win the game 27-26. Not so fast. Baker Mayfield down the field, and a game-winning field goal kicked as time expired. Jets, Zach, we're gonna look at this one.
Jets.
Yeah, I know, right? We're gonna look at this one, big picture, with two main bullet points here. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of it, just an overall analysis of it. It's 3 games into the season. This is now the 3rd game in a row the Jets have dropped. It's the 2nd close one when you loop in the Steeler game as well that they lost by a field goal. Are you feeling better, worse, or about the same regarding this team after their hard-fought, non-moral victory against the Bucs?
That's a good way of framing it, because I think I was probably higher on the team coming into the season than you, like just broadly. We probably predicted around the same amount of wins, but I was broadly more excited about what this team could maybe like compete. But I'd say I am more concerned coming out of this game than I was 3 weeks ago, than I was a week ago or 2 weeks ago, because the Bills game was pretty rough. The defense to me is the biggest concern I have, because this looks like straight up a bad unit. They have not fixed any of their problems. They have struggled with tackling. Their coverage on the back end has been inconsistent. Their best players have either been hurt or inconsistent. And really, like, the only guy that I think has been pretty good all 3 games is probably like Quinnen Williams and Jawan Briggs. Like, those are like the only ones I could think of on this entire defense that you could say they've been either good or okay for all 3 games. And that is a concern. And you're not going to be able to compete if your defense is that bad and your offense is going to be hit or miss in the way that they have been so far, and the way that they will be as long as Justin Fields is the quarterback. So, ultimately the schedule is not as intimidating as it gets further down, but, people are going to look, we get into this trap every year of saying that, but like the opposite end is going to be looking at the Jets as like, okay, well, that's not that hard of a game. The Browns just beat the Packers. The Browns are supposed to be an easy win for the Jets. So like there's no easy games, and this is not a team that has shown me an ability to improve on the things that they have struggled with.
Well, that's
it. Yeah.
That's it, Zach. It's that I'm in the boat. I feel worse about them, because if we flash back and we get in the DeLorean and we go back all the way to week 1 when the Jets lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that was another non-moral victory for Aaron Glenn's team, and we said, what are you worried about coming out of that game? We would have said the penalties, the in-game decision making, and the defense. And here we are 3 weeks later after another moral victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And not only are we still concerned with the penalties, the in-game management, and the horrendous defense, but now you can add new warts into the equation, because after Tanner Engstrand put forth his first set of true 4 quarters of game film, where the Jets lit the world on fire against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and teams realized, oh, this is what he wants to do, and they countered it by figuring out how to run blitz to shut down Breece Hall, and they figured out how to, especially against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, blitz like crazy to harass the quarterback. There has been no counter from the Jets' offensive staff, no counter from the Jets' offensive players. So now not only are you concerned with all the things you were concerned about in week 1, now you add offensive issues to the mix as well, and I don't see anything. This is probably the most damning assessment of the Jets right now, and I know that Glenn was trying to put forth. He was much better, I think, on the conference call today with addressing the negatives. But all the positive feels, I can't buy into it. I can't buy into it because I don't see anything getting better that's wrong with this team right now, and that's a major concern.
Yeah, the defense, again, I keep going back to that. Like, he's not a defensive coach. I get that. But, like, their whole emphasis this offseason was tackling.
He doesn't want to say it because it's like a derogatory thing.
Well, his point is, like, I coach everything. And he does do that with the Jets. He does not only focus on the defense. But tackling was an issue last year. They tackled in camp. That was supposed to cure their woes. And their tackling has been arguably worse. I mean, they had, I forget what the number was. They had, like, 18 missed tackles this week. They had 10 last week. I believe they had 8 week 1.
Yeah.
I don't know where that ranks in the league.
16 per Pro Football Focus. 8,
10, 16. Yeah, so I got it.
Like
Right.
it's a
Depends on which site are you looking. But I mean, I'd surmise that that's one of the worst rates in the NFL, and it matches the eye test when you watch these games. And I don't even know what they're counting in terms of guys who are not even there to make the pursuit, guys that are giving up on plays or getting blocked into the ground. Like that doesn't really count as missed tackles. Like for example, like we're talking about how much they fought to the end, or they are. Look at that drive where Will McDonald had that remarkable play that should have been like the story of that game. It happened. That field goal attempt only happened because they just completely broke down when Baker Mayfield scrambled. He ran for 33 yards. Michael Clemens couldn't get off a block from the tight end. There were guys at the opposite end of the field that it looked like were giving up on the play, and so he gets 33 yards to get them in field goal range for a kicker in Caleb McLaughlin, who nailed a 55-yarder earlier in the game. And so that was a disastrous moment that was saved by a remarkable athletic achievement by Will McDonald, who, by the way, had a pretty bad game otherwise. He did pretty much nothing as a pass rusher. So, there's positives to take, but like they do not outweigh the negatives. And people always get mad at us for being too negative, but like they're 0-3. Like why are we always trying to paint lipstick on the pig? Like if the Jets win, we will celebrate it. And at the end of the day, look, you look at these 3 games before the season, these look like 3 of the hardest games they're going to have in a row all season. That's absolutely true. And they lost all 3 of them. Like, that's not shocking. What will be shocking is if they lose to the Dolphins this week. We're going to talk about that later. But, like, I think this is weirdly a turning point game for this team because that's an 0-3 team that you're supposed to beat. And if you lose to them after saying you built all this momentum in week 3, like, that's why I'm not ready to call the season they're going to be a disaster all year. They could turn it around and be competitive and things like that, but we need to see it first. Like you can't just like turn it on in the second half of the third quarter through the end of the game. Like you said, we've seen that happen over and over and over again. You just don't win football games that way. It's not what winning teams do. You don't come out sloppy and then have to make up for it while the other team is taking their foot off the gas, which the Buccaneers did. And so
that's exactly it, Zach. And that's what to me just blows my mind. And we're gonna talk a little bit of coaching here. But this we fought back. Oh, we never stopped. Oh, we never stopped. Jet fans know Todd Bowles. Okay, he was this team's head coach. How many games did the Jets go up and then just let the opponent back in? Like the fourth quarter collapse was the storyline week in and week out with this team over Todd Bowles. And he did exactly the same thing here. He thought the game was over in the fourth quarter. The first 3 quarters of the game, this shout out Seth Walder, he used to cover the Jets, now works in ESPN Stats and Analytics Department. He texted this one over to me. The first 3 quarters, Todd Bowles blitzed Tyrod Taylor 63% of the time. Tyrod Taylor on those plays, 14 of 21 for 80 yards with an interception. The Jets as an offense, 124 total yards, 9 first downs, and 6 points in 8 possessions. In the fourth quarter, they blitzed Taylor just 21% of the times. And guess what happened, Zach? 2 possessions. 2 possessions the Jets had in the fourth quarter offensively. Taylor was 12 of 15 for 117 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Jets totaled 143 yards, 12 first downs, and scored the 2 touchdowns, 14 points on those 2 possessions. Like the Bucs pulled it back, and then that's when the Jets went down the field. And guess what? When the Buccaneers had to have it, they went right down the field and were going to kick a field goal to go up 9 and put the game out of way. Then McDonald made his heroics. But then guess what? Too much time on the field, and the Bucs go right back down and score again. Let's talk a little coaching. I do want to get to that. We're going to get to offense. We're going to get to defense. We're going to get to the Dolphins too before the show ends. But specifically with the coaching, penalties again reared their ugly head. Now the Jets haven't been as horrendous as they've been the past 2 years. They finished 32nd and 32nd the last 2 years under Robert Saleh in total penalties called. They're currently 12th overall in the NFL right now in penalties. So right around middle of the pack. That could theoretically fall a little bit higher or lower depending on what happens in this Lions-Ravens game tonight. But 7 penalties, 81 yards. The Michael Clemens penalty wasn't really a penalty, but he's putting himself in that position because he's going high and it opens up the possibility of did he hit head, all that stuff. That was a bad one. Arian Smith, a couple procedural ones, including one that basically ended a drive. That's something they got to clean up. I mean, we've been talking about this for a month now, so I don't actually going back even longer than that because we talked about this in July and August. I don't know what else you're really supposed to do.
I mean, with the penalties, I mean, it was worse on the other end, and it didn't matter. So I don't think penalties was as much of an issue. Although the Sauce one, which was a ticky-tack foul, but Baker was trying to draw that out. Like he just aired it out in hopes that Sauce would get a DPI, and it worked. It was 3rd and 29, got a first down. The fact that the Buccaneers had a drive where they had 5 holding penalties and 7 penalties in total and wound up scoring at the end of that drive was just really, really gutting for the defense. And, I think there was some praise about how the defense played because if you just look at it, the Buccaneers have statistically one of the best offenses in the NFL. The Jets were able to hold them for the most part. But really, the Buccaneers, like you said, they had a lot of penalties. I think they had 14 total or something like that. And they had 4 drops, 3 of them from Mike Evans, who does not drop passes. So like the Buccaneers were kind of handing the game to the Jets, and they didn't really take it until the end. And then by then, the Bucs were just like, okay, we'll wake back up. We'll drive down the field. We'll score on you with ease. And that's exactly what happened. Like I have a lot of concerns and issues with the way they've played on the back end. And it's alarming to me because this is supposed to be a coaching staff like full of, I thought on paper this looked like a great defensive back coaching staff, and they still could be that. They're developing some young guys, but you have Aaron Glenn, who played in the NFL for as long as he did, developed all these guys in Detroit. You have Chris Harris, played in the NFL for a long time, was a good coach in Tennessee. You have Dre Bly, played in the NFL for a long time. You have Steve Wilkes, and you have Chris Banjo, even played defensive back in the NFL for a long time. And these defensive backs keep making the same mistakes every week. Their approach has been terrible on tackles. The coverage has been inconsistent. Sauce, by the way, like one of the most shocking things of this game, Baker Mayfield was targeting Sauce. Like he was going after Sauce Gardner.
We're gonna get to that too. Like we're gonna spend a lot of time.
I'm stepping on. Yeah, so we can get to that later. But that blew my mind. So
yeah, it did. And one thing, and this is going to transition because we're going to talk a little Tyrod Taylor in a minute here because I didn't think he was that bad. But tying in with the offense, and this is a quick one, Zach. I'm a little concerned with Tanner. That week 1 was about as impressive as I thought you could have in a debut, both from what we saw from Justin Fields, what we saw from the ground game, what we saw from the offensive line. Mentioned it a little bit ago, but it bears repeating because I'm curious your opinion on it. Once that game film, 4 quarters, 60 minutes of a Tanner Engstrand offense got out there, everything has changed. I mean, so the opener against the Steelers, the Jets had 394 yards, 23 first downs, and they scored 32 points. In weeks 2 and 3, against the bad Bills defense and then a Bucs defense that I would say is okay. I don't think they're elite. They're averaging 210 yards per game, 16 first downs, and 15 points. I think Todd Bowles had him in a complete blender earlier, in a mental blender earlier in this game because, and I was talking to Connor Rogers about this, it was like they were bringing just the safety and the corner the same way every single play, and there was no adjustment. Like they made it very clear, we are going to blitz the ever-living you-know-what out of you, and there was never an adjustment. The Jets had no answer for the blitz. The only answer they had for the blitz was when Bowles stopped blitzing. That was the only time they stopped it. And the run game has become non-existent. The passing concepts have kind of become irrelevant again. And now that teams are getting to the quarterback and hitting them at an alarming rate, 19 pressures the Buccaneers were able to get on the Jets this past game. It's you-know-what cutting time for Engstrand. He's got to figure this one out because the book's out on him a bit, and now he needs to counter the teams have done to him.
I'm not ready to jump ship on Tanner just yet. I do think the running stuff.
Yeah.
I think the running game has been more concerning to me, weirdly, than the passing game because I still think there was times in this game where you looked and the receivers were open, and Tyrod, he did what he does a lot, which is hold on to the ball a little too long. He was really good in the second half. He got a lot better, but I also, and again, personnel, you can't use personnel as an excuse because coaches do that a lot. They've done that a lot around here. They blame the fact that, what do you want me to do? But, the wide receiver 2 in this game was Arian Smith, who, as much as I think has some talent and potential, I don't think he was ready to play. I think he ran 83% of the routes or something like that, which is pretty higher than I expected. Lazard actually made a bigger impact than I expected outside of that terrible 4th down call that you mentioned. But yeah, there are some questionable play calls. Tanner Engstrand, to a degree, is learning on the job. There was the 4th and 1. It seemed like Tyrod maybe changed this at the line. We didn't ask Aaron Glenn about this yet. Maybe we'll ask Tanner later in the week. There was 4th and 1. It seemed like Tyrod killed it to give it to Braylon Allen, and it went backwards. Whereas if Tyrod just did a QB sneak, it would have been a first down probably. So, but yeah, there's been some questionable play calls in the running game. I think Braylon Allen at this point probably needs to play more. The run blocking has been suspect the last couple weeks. But yeah, Todd Bowles, we knew going into this game, Aaron Glenn was asked about it. We talked about it all week. We knew Todd Bowles was going to blitz the crap out of him, or blitz the poo out of him. Sorry, I know I'm supposed to say poop on this show. We knew he was going to do that, and he did it, and the Jets were not ready for it. And that was the most alarming thing. That's coaching at the end of the day. That's preparation leading up to the game, and that's taking what you do in practice and transitioning it to the game, which is something the last staff, Aaron Glenn has taken some shots at. That's something the last staff often struggled with. Like it was a lot of talk about having great weeks of practice. Then they would go out there and they would not be ready for things that they should have been ready for. And so that's alarming. And you come out of the game, they scored on their first 2 drives, to Tanner Angstand's credit, which, Nate Hackett rarely did. So that was good. But, you go up 6-3 and then they fall down. Then before you know it, they're down 20-6. So, Tyrod's pick 6. We're going to get into Tyrod now, I believe. So I'll save that. But, it wasn't all on Tanner. There were some mistakes by Tyrod, but the running game is where I have real concerns because they're telling anybody who will listen we're a running team, and they cannot run the ball right now. So,
no, they can't. And we'll like I said, we'll get to that in a little bit. But sticking with Tyrod Taylor here, Zach, I didn't think he was that bad. I don't. I don't think he was great. The numbers I think look better than probably he played just because of that fourth quarter, those 2 series there once Bowles called it off. You can see it on the screen, 26-36, almost 200 yards, the pair of touchdowns. The deeper one, and we talked about this before the show, going into this week, I should say. The expectation was that the offense was going to open up with Taylor and that the Jets were going to attack the ball down the field. Again, 2 years ago when he was with the Giants and he started 5 games, 15% of his passes went over 20 yards. He is an aggressive quarterback. He wants to give his guys a chance. He's a gunslinger. That's what and who Tyrod Taylor is. Only 1 attempt, though, against the Buccaneers was over 20 yards. That's it. And obviously he didn't complete it. Everything else, 27 of his other throws were 10 yards or under. So it was clear that he was not taking those chances. I think the reasoning for that was because the offensive line, again, we mentioned it, he was on his butt. I think it was 10 quarterback hits, 19 pressures. The Jets allowed. You're not going to have anything there. The major bugaboo was the interception. And I liked that the Jets were being aggressive. But that's a fumble. I don't blame a quarterback for getting rocked and fumbling the ball. It's just not. It's not like Daniel Jones where he's fumbling 50 times a game. Or the Fields one where he's running and he's loose with it. You're getting hit hard. That's going to happen sometimes. That's not the interception is the one that stands out a bit. Mason Taylor's open over the middle. You could have gone there. You see that on the all-22. But that pick, while a questionable decision, floated up, guy in his face, probably should have just eaten it or dirted it. Garrett's got to be better there too, man. He's got to attack the ball.
He said so.
I think this is what's so maddening to me about Garrett Wilson and just what's frustrating about watching him play is he has all of the makings of a player who can be one of the 3 to 5 to 6 or 7 best in the NFL. He is that good, but there's all of these little things in his game, these little minor warts that rear their ugly head that keep him from reaching that potential. There are the drops that seem to come out more than what they should be. There's some lackadaisical route running where it's not nearly as crisp. And then there's moments like this where lazy is probably the wrong word, but it's almost like he kind of checks out a bit and he runs the route, which wasn't overly great near the sideline, and then just sits there. Any receiver will tell you, you have to attack that ball. You have to go back to the ball because if you don't go back to the ball, the defender can. Get in the way. Worst case scenario, you just break it up and it's incomplete. Or I guess worst case, even if the defender catches it, you're there to make the tackle. But it's him just sitting there, allowing Dean to jump it and then running in for the end zone. It's a frustrating one because I don't think Taylor was that bad, and unfortunately that's the major red flag there. We didn't have any real update on Justin Fields from Glenn. I know that's still something that they're looking at, but do you think you should see more of Taylor? In your opinion, you think he should do more, or is it's Fields' job when he comes back no matter what?
At this point, I think it's Fields' job. I don't think Taylor did enough in that game to where it's like a real QB controversy. I could be wrong. Aaron Glenn had a chance to say Justin's our starter when he gets back. He opted to say, I'm not going to say anything until he's cleared, which I understand. But, they signed Justin Fields to a 2-year, $40 million deal, $30 million guaranteed. They declared him the starter all offseason. You're not going to bail after Tyrod Taylor throws for less than 200 yards in a loss. So you bring Justin Fields back against statistically maybe the worst defense in the NFL, at least in terms of EPA with the Dolphins, which we'll get into later. But if Justin Fields is cleared this week, I think he's the starter. But, this team loves Tyrod Taylor, as, I wrote about at the end of the week. It's like this wherever he goes. He's often the most popular guy in the locker room because he's cool, he's calm, and he can play. And I think he's ultimately best suited as your number 2. But, yeah, you still need to see what you have in Justin Fields, because the reality is there's a 0% chance Tyrod Taylor's your starter in 2026. There's a non-0% chance that Fields could be that. So you have to see what you have in Justin Fields, especially for an 0-3 team that's not making the playoffs anyway at this point.
He is Zack Rosenblatt. I'm Connor Hughes. You guys are watching Jets Final Drive here across SNY's digital platforms. Appreciate anywhere you guys are watching us, whether that's X, SNY.TV, Facebook, or YouTube. Wherever you guys are watching, though, if you want to head on over to YouTube, that is the place to be, because there's a live chat running over there throughout the duration of the show where you guys can interact with Zach and I and executive producer Jeff Goldman, who's monitoring that chat throughout the show and letting me know what you guys say. Comments, questions, concerns, all that stuff, like this one that just came in. Should Muji get more heat for the weak roster? I think that's probably fair. Receiver was something that you and I looked at this roster and were like, maybe the Jets know something we don't. Defensive end was something that you and I looked at this roster and said, maybe the Jets know something we don't. Brandon Stevens was somebody that we looked at the roster and said, maybe the Jets know something we don't. Cisco, maybe the Jets know something we don't. And it turns out through 3 weeks, the Jets did not know something that we don't. All of these potential problems have been major problems. And honestly, Zach, I think that if you're looking for reasons why the Jets are winless, those problems at the roster, how top-heavy this team with very little depth, and those issues at cornerback 2, receiver 2, safety, the back end, all that stuff, defensive line, they're rearing their ugly heads.
Yeah, the one I in particular don't understand, like at receiver, like you could talk yourself into Josh Reynolds just being a role player who blocks, whatever. I didn't understand why they didn't bring in any defensive ends. Like they didn't bring it. They drafted Tyler Barron in the 5th round. And he is someone who probably shouldn't be on the field right now. Brady McGregor was undrafted last year, didn't have a sack, and he was absolutely rough yesterday. He had a particularly bad missed tackle on one of the runs. I just don't understand why they went into the season with that as their depth at defensive end. And if you look at it, like all the spots that you would have pointed at as a concern either for depth or at starter would have been wide receiver, defensive end, safety, and linebacker. And all of those positions were hurt on Sunday. Quincy Williams got hurt in the first half. The other ones, Tony Adams was out. Josh Reynolds was out. Jermaine Johnson was out. And so you're playing all these backups that probably have no business being out there. And so at the end of the day, they were outmanned against a team that didn't have 3 of their 5 offensive linemen. The receivers, you have Arian Smith playing 85% of the snaps or 95% of the snaps, whatever it was, in his 3rd game as a 4th-round pick. Tyler Johnson, who was on the practice squad 2 weeks ago, is the number 2 receiver. Like there's real talent deficit after the stars, and their stars aren't good enough to overcome that, is what we're finding out, I would say. And I think Sauce, again, I know we're gonna get into that, but like it's tied to Brandon Stevens.
I'm gonna have you want a buzzer on me when I talk too long. I'm gonna buzz you when you start going to a topic that we're going to.
I know because we're talking about certain. But my point was gonna be they had DJ Reed last year. They replaced him with Brandon Stevens. I think having DJ Reed also made Sauce's life a little bit easier to a degree, is my point. Not to say Brandon Stevens being out there is why Sauce played the way he did, but like Stevens has been rough. Like that's the one you can point to. Like the Fields one, you understand why you're taking that lottery ticket. But for Brandon Stevens, like the evidence was that the one thing he wasn't doing was turning his head around. Well, he's still not doing that, and he's not tackling very well either. So, if you just look at it, like which of Darren Muji's moves outside of the draft, which is too early to judge, have been, like you could say that's a win. I would say Harrison Phillips and Jawan Briggs, who we just got 3 weeks ago. So it's concerning early. It's again, like I'm trying to caution that it's too early to like give up on anybody. Cisco has been a pretty big disappointment, frankly, and maybe we didn't talk about that enough the first couple weeks. Yeah, he wasn't. Like, and that's why you got him. That's why you got him for 1 year and $9 million or whatever it was. The Jets have just not invested in the safety position since they drafted Jamal Adams early, and they just don't have talent there right now.
was like the over because it was Jamal and Marcus first and second round.
Yeah.
I was like, that's not even a premium position. Like, what are we doing here? But like the game that I always like to play, Zach, is would he start for a good team? And I imagine the player that we're all talking about, and would that player start for a playoff team? And the answer with Josh Reynolds and Tyler Johnson and Brandon Stevens and Cisco and Tony Adams and Malachi Moore and far too many players on this Jets roster is no. That's it. The answer is no. Unfortunately here, as we move on a little bit, Zach, a problem that has risen that I don't think any one of us truly expected, and maybe this was just me being more high on them than I should have been going into the year, is the Jets' offensive line. They have been, over the last 2 weeks, I think exposed is the right word to use. I think that left hand up, I was probably a little too high on them going into the year. I think the Elijah Vera Tucker injury is now being felt after the Jets were able to kind of punt it aside in the opener. But Olu Fashanu, and Connor Rogers and I were talking about this. I mean, he hasn't been as bad as like what Pro Football Focus says that he's been, but he hasn't been good. Credited with a team-high 6 pressures and 3 penalties this week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You look at him on the season, of the 58 offensive linemen to play at least 50% of their team snaps, Olu has a Pro Football Focus grade of 53.4, which is the 12th worst, a 51.8 pass block rate, which is the 12th worst, and his 92.2 efficiency is the 4th worst. Now, the Jets are absolutely helping Armand Membu on the other side, so Olu's kind of solo on the left, but that doesn't excuse some of these pressures that he's allowing, because if you can't rely on Olu and you also have to help Membu, then that's exposing your other problems, which is that Joe Tippmann is not a very good offensive guard. Myers is not a very good center. John Simpson's a solid left guard, but he's even dealing with his own issues. So this was a group that the Jets were supposed to be able to hang their hat on. We can talk about the secondary. We knew that could be an issue, right? We can talk about wide receiver too. We knew that could be an issue. Quarterback knew that could be an issue. Tight end knew there was going to be learning curve there with Mason Taylor. The offensive line was the hat hanger. That was the one where, you don't got to worry about that. They're going to be good. Dude, 19 pressures, 4 sacks, and 10 quarterback hits against the Buccaneers. No quarterback will survive that. And if you want to say, the quarterback's holding the ball too long, that's fine. Absolutely. Fields holds it too long, so does Taylor. But they can't run block either. Like the deterioration of Breece Hall has been wild. 9 carries for 21 yards this week against the Bucs, who I don't think are an elite level run blocking or run defense team. 17 of those yards came on one play, so he had 8 rushes for 4 yards on all of the carries. And this isn't just a one-game sample size, because a week ago against the Bills, 10 for 29, 12 on one play. That's 9 of 17 on all of the carries. Like that's an issue right now that's going on. And I don't know if Breece is regressing to the player that just wants to try to hit the home run, which maybe that means we want to go to see Braylon Allen a little bit more. But the bigger picture, I think, is that the offensive line is struggling immensely, both run blocking and pass blocking. And that's not a great combo, dude.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about this group practiced a certain way all summer, and they were thrown for a loop when they lost, I think, their best offensive lineman, and then you had to shuffle some things, and all of a sudden Joe Tippmann was competing to play center all summer, and then all of a sudden he's the starting right guard, and you have a rookie right tackle inexperienced group, and I think we maybe underestimated what that would mean for this group going into the season, and Olu struggling the way he has. Are we still good?
I think we're good. I think we're doing the like. Remember, you ever have an Xbox where it was like the red ring of death? Remember that?
Oh.
I see you now, Zach.
Okay, we good?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you remember when you had an Xbox and you had the red ring of death? The red ring of death? You ever have that? I think that's basically what happens sometimes with this. Is like you go into like this circle, but on YouTube and everywhere else that we broadcast, I think it's usually fine. But
I was trying to keep talking, but
Yeah, just keep going, keep powering through. Like I said, I haven't gotten a text yet from Jeff or anybody being like, "Oh my God, the whole world's down." So we'll figure all that out. The offensive line, though, is there a fix in your opinion, Zach? Like do you see a fix for the offensive line? Because the way that they're getting beat right now is to me, it's not like, and we've seen this before because you covered the Giants before I did, and I've seen it. You saw even now with some of the Jet players, like when there's just a bad lineman, you can see a team just attacks that player, and that player can cause everyone else to just kind of implode on themselves. I don't see that with the Jets. It's not like these teams, the Bills and the Bucs, have been like, oh, Myers is the weak link, let's go get him. It's not like they're like, Olu is the weak link, let's go get him. Or this player's the weak link, let's go get him. This is a collective, just the unit is struggling, and the unit is failing, and the unit is faltering. And when that's happening, I don't know. I don't know how you fix it. I don't know how you adjust it unless it's just this group needs more collective time together.
I mean, that was going to be my answer. Like, I think at the end of the day, their only option is to just keep trucking forward with this group because they don't have any backups that I think you can really plug in there. And you're not going to find somebody in a trade or in free agency. So I think you just keep rolling with this young group. You hope they get better over time. And I think there's reason to believe they will. Like, Armin Membu, while you said he's been getting help, I think he's mostly been pretty solid. Like every now and then he'll give up a pressure, but I think he only has given up like 3 pressures in 3 games and 1 sack. So there's encouragement there. And Olu, like I said, he's more inexperienced than I think we give him credit for. And offensive linemen sometimes take a little bit to adjust. And, I thought he was going to be good right out of the gate, but he has not been. So I think you hope with time it gets better. And you hope that as you get through this season and maybe you get to some of the teams that don't have as intimidating of defensive lines, the Dolphins do have some talented pass rushers actually, but I think that I'm not ready to say they're going to be a terrible offensive line, that they're going to be more like week 1 or if they're going to be more like week 2, but they need to be better. And I think experience will be the thing because this is a young group at the end of the day. I mean, John Simpson is probably the oldest one on the group. I think he's 27 or 28. Everybody else is 25 or under, I believe. So it's a young group.
You're not willing to say that they're going to be a terrible group. I am dangerously close to saying that the Jets defense is going to be a massive problem throughout the year.
Yes.
I am there. And it is rare. And it's rare that I can say I've experienced something rare while covering this team. That for 3 consecutive weeks, the same thing's an issue.
Yep.
And the same thing for the Jets right now is their defense. And we've repeated this a couple times. Aaron Glenn praising the team for their fight. Aaron Glenn praising their team for their resolve. Zach, this was a Tampa Bay Buccaneer team that was missing 3/5 of their offensive line. Chris Godwin did not play. Ibuka was at best 50%. Mike Evans left with an injury. Baker Mayfield was in no way, shape, or form healthy. They gave them 12 penalties for 124 yards, routinely shot themselves in the foot, played the entire fourth quarter until those final 2 possessions trying to just get the game clock ran out so they could go out of this one with a victory. And at one point, it seemed like this one was going to be a blowout. The Jets' defense, if it wasn't for the 4 additional drops, 3 of which by Mike Evans, and those penalties, this is probably a blowout where a blocked field goal doesn't even matter except for fantasy points and special teams. The Jets again forced 0 turnovers. Quinnen Williams had half a sack and 2 quarterback hits. No other player had another quarterback hit. And I know you could say, the defensive line forced holdings. No, that was just basically an XFL-level offensive line holding on for dear life. Sauce Gardner in the secondary was supposed to be the one certain. The Jets made him the highest paid cornerback in the NFL. And what blew my mind more than anything else is that Baker Mayfield was targeting Sauce Gardner. They were going to the line, and they weren't saying, okay, Sauce is on Evans, let's target somebody else. They were saying, where's Sauce? That's what happened. He had a 30.2 Pro Football Focus cover grade, which is the worst of his career. He has a 67.5 defensive grade this season, which is the worst of his career. In his last 2 games, he's been targeted 10 times, allowed 5 completions, 91 yards, and 3 penalties. Again, this is your lockdown, shutdown corner that teams over the last 2 weeks have thrown at 10 times. That is alarming because no one's scared of him right now. They're not scared of Sauce Gardner. In fact, the biggest indictment of where things are with Sauce, and I love him. I think he's a dominant player, but he's got to get out of his head right now, is that on 3rd and 29, when they are just throwing one up there, hoping to get a penalty, who does Mayfield throw to? Not Michael Carter. not Brandon Stevens. He said, where's Sauce Gardner? That's my best chance to get a penalty and a free first down. And what did Sauce do? He gave him the penalty. Ticky-tack or not, that to me, turnovers, that's a problem. Laying down flat against a Buccaneer team that was so depleted, that's a problem. But targeting Gardner, who's supposed to be your all-world, all-pro corner, I didn't see it coming, and that's got to change.
I mean, it was jarring to watch in the moment because, you know, when you're watching live and a crazy catch happens or somebody looks like they got beat badly, you try to figure out, okay, who was covering them? And the amount of times we had to look and see that it was number one was jarring. You know, this is, like you said, they paid him to be a shutdown corner. The whole idea coming into this season, you know, he had a quote in training camp where he says, I thank the coaches every day for putting me in this kind of defense, you know, man coverage, follow the best receiver. I'm going to get more chances at making plays. He doesn't have a turnover yet. I don't know how many pass defenses he's had. He did have one in that game, actually. And, you know, they were going at him with Mike Evans. They were going at him with Emeka Egbuka. And he wasn't successfully. And I will say, Egbuka did make a remarkable catch on one of them, but, you know, he shouldn't be beating Sauce 101. That's just the end of the day. And so, you know, he's going to be held to a higher standard like he was last year because, number one, he's a two-time All-Pro. Number two, he wants to be considered the best in the NFL. And number three, he just got a contract to make him the highest paid. And so, you know, if this defense is going to succeed, they need their best players to be on the field and they need them to be playing at their best. And he did not do that. And the fact that he didn't do that and you don't have Jermaine Johnson out there, we don't know how long he's going to be out. And Quincy Williams hurts his shoulder. Like, this is a defense that's banged up and their best players aren't playing well. Jamie and Sherwood, disappointment. Like, those are the reasons, like, even more than like, okay, they are bad at safety. They don't have depth at defensive end, whatever. When your best players are not playing well, like that's the most alarming thing. Like you would have thought Jamie and Sherwood getting that contract in this new defense was going to be great. Quincy Williams was playing well before he got hurt, but up until that point this season was playing poorly. And Sauce, the Sauce is a concerning one. He needs to bounce back, and he has Tyreek come in this week to try and defend.
Yeah, I genuinely believe, Zach, that the problem with the Jets, and we can talk about it, the 16 missed tackles are ridiculous too. They had 10 a week ago against the Bills, and then 8 against the Steelers 2 weeks before that. So the tackling in training camp didn't make a damn difference. I talked to a handful of coaches around the NFL that study defense, and they have now watched the film of the Jets. And going into this, when I talked to people going into training camp and they had spoken with people on the Jets defensive staff, they told me that they were going to have Steve Wilks run Aaron Glenn's defense. That was the plan for the Jets. Steve Wilks running Aaron Glenn's defense. Watching the film that the Jets have put out there, again, talking to defensive coaches who know far more about the game than I do, and I actually ran this by Connor Rogers, who saw very similar things as well. They said that they see a team with an identity crisis. And the reason you're seeing Quincy Williams struggle so much, Sauce potentially struggle so much, Sherwood struggle so much, is they're all thinking right now instead of just doing and reacting. This defense has aspects of Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbricht's defense with some sprinkles of Aaron Glenn's defense in Detroit, run by Steve Wilks, whose best defenses were in no way, shape, or form anything involving those two schemes. So it's almost like they tried to run Glenn's stuff, realized they don't have the personnel to do that right now, pivoted to try to run Saleh's defense while still trying to sprinkle in parts of Glenn's defense to then make the full transition while having Steve Wilks call it, who doesn't really have great experience with either of those schemes. And the result has been a complete and total disaster. A question did come in here on YouTube, and I want to get to it because I think it's very, very fascinating. And again, wherever you guys are watching us across SNY's digital platforms, X, Facebook, SNY.TV, appreciate you. But the cool thing about watching us on YouTube, which subscribe to SNY's channel there on YouTube, is that you can interact with us live throughout the show in the comment section. This one from Jeff Goldman, who is sending it to me, executive producer Jeff Goldman, sending it to me from Broadway Jets. I'm trying to get this all right. NYJ Matt. Oh, this is NYJ Matt. That's why I misread it. My boy Matt. Will A.Z. Thomas start at some point by October? Because that's the one change. Like, as they're figuring out this scheme, that's one thing. The personnel adjustments they can make, I don't know how long you want to stick with Malachi Moore. It's a rookie learning. But A.Z. Thomas in for Brandon Stevens. A.Z. Thomas playing some significant snaps now. Saw it a little bit. Thought he played okay. 10 total snaps against the Bucs. 2 targets, no catches, had a pass breakup. Is more Thomas coming in October?
I think that will be something that happens later than the fans want it to, because they are invested in Brandon Stevens.
Yeah,
I personally wonder about the idea, and was floated in the offseason when they signed Stevens and then drafted Thomas. Like the idea of moving Stevens to safety, which he has played in the NFL. If he keeps playing this way at corner, like you have to just say, okay, we messed up on this contract and we have to put the best player out there. And Quintez Stiggers is somebody that's been forgotten too. I don't see why he doesn't get a shot either, frankly, because I think he's shown some flashes in his time with the Jets as well. But Stevens it's not even just the turning the head, like the tackling approach and the pursuit, and
I don't think he makes a good safety. That's what I'm saying. Like I don't see the attributes of, like, you watch a guy like Charles Wood. Like, now granted, this is the extreme, but like Rod Woodson, Charles Woodson, like guys who made the conversion to safety, or Entrell Roll even. Like there were parts of their game where you're like, oh, that guy would make a good safety. I don't think those aspects are like Stevens is a sticky guy who stays close to guys and is good in man coverage, who just doesn't turn his head around. Like that not turning your head around and tracking the ball, that's only going to be amplified as a safety.
Yeah.
Not tackling is just going to be amplified as a safety. I don't see a position change making. I mean, if you're going to bench him, you're going to bench him. And he's just going to play corner, and you're just going to be eating that salary, which we all know Woody Johnson doesn't want to do.
But yeah, that was going to be my point, though. Like, we don't know yet with this staff how much they, like, I think the last staff, to a degree, with Joe Douglas, they had like a hard time like moving on from guys when they needed to, or benching them fully because they paid them so X amount of money, they drafted him in X round, and we don't know what this staff in terms of like their approach to that yet. So I think that's something I have my eye on, because Stevens he's going to keep getting the ire of this fan base until he plays better or until he gets benched. That's just the reality. And I think Azariah Thomas, he's someone who missed all of training camp, but the fact that he missed all of camp and went out there for 10 snaps and competed the way he did was highly, highly encouraging to me.
Well, the big thing here, too, and I'm sure there's a bunch of players on the Jets defense who don't want Stevens to come out of the game, because he and Michael Clemens are public enemy number 1 and number 2. But I think the problem is that, like, Aaron Glenn spent the entire offseason singing this guy's praises and talking about how great he is. Glenn spent the entire offseason singing the praises about how Will McDonald is getting an every down player, and the Jets literally can't play Will McDonald on first and second down right now, dude. Like he is so bad against the run that, as good as he is as a pass rusher, they can't put him on the field on first and second down. Like, he can only play in passing situations, and it's only been 3 weeks, so you don't want to go too aggressive on one side or the other, but it really does look like some aggressive roster mismanagement in the construction. Yep. Just because there are holes everywhere. Absolutely. And it's one thing, Zach, when a hole pops up and you're like, damn, didn't see that coming. You, me, anybody who watched this team in training camp, anybody who follows this team, the problems that we pre-diagnosed going into the year on defense are all there. Everything. There is no new problem. The things that are hurting the Jets this year are exactly what you and I would have said were going to hurt this team when we were watching them during their first OTA practices. It's exactly it. It's that the safeties are bad. It's that Brandon Stevens is bad. It's that Will McDonald can't play the run. It's that they fixed the interior defensive line. Shout out to that. But then there's no depth. They're top heavy with zero depth. And now that Sauce Gardner's struggling as well, it's just amplifying the issues elsewhere. Injuries, Zach. I was not on the conference call with Aaron Glenn. You were. Quincy Williams, Jermaine Johnson, Tony Adams, Sauce Gardner. Those were the big injuries that were kind of out of there. Can I run through updates with you on what he said about them, if you remember?
Well, the updates were that he's going to know more later, so we won't hear until Thursday. But I just to run through them real quick. Like Tony Adams, I'd be concerned about his ability to play because his injury, he was questionable, and they downgraded him to out on Saturday, which means he went out for practice and something probably didn't go well. Jermaine, he did update on Friday that it was not his Achilles ankle that got hurt, which is promising. And, there was that vague Jermaine Johnson tweet like a week ago where he seemed to be excited about, maybe it not being an Achilles again. But, he did not practice all week. So until he practices, we can't bank on him playing. Justin Fields, he needs to be cleared in time to play. They're going to practice Thursday, Friday, Saturday because it's a Monday game. He needs to practice more than just Saturday was Aaron Glenn's rule. So I'm curious to see what happens there. And Quincy Williams, he left with a shoulder injury. I think it was at the end of the second quarter, did not return. He's somebody that, he was starting to get back into a groove, I thought, in the beginning of that game. His backup is Marcelino McCrary-Ball and Kiko Mauigoa, the rookie. And so I have a lot of concerns about, especially with the way Jamie and Sherwood's playing, if Quincy can't go. But the updates are that there are not really any updates, but the amount of important players on that list is concerning this early in the season.
It is, especially because Quincy Williams is really struggling a lot. I mean, he's swimming in his head. You can tell that. But who starts if he's not out there? That's a problem. Jermaine Johnson, him not playing means Michael Clemens is playing a chunk of snaps. Jermaine and Clemens, I think, can sometimes work, especially against the ground. But then it's other things. It's just there are a lot of things that are exploited when some of those guys are missing. All right, Zach. You've been on the beat for a minute now. I've been on it for about an hour. The traveling to Miami and playing at Hard Rock has been a house of horrors for this team. I remember the Antonio Allen offsides, which led to like a kickoff return touchdown. The moment where if the Jets won the game, they were going to get Aaron Rodgers back, and instead they were blanketed by the Miami Dolphins, shut out, and pretty much what sealed. I know Robert returned, but that moment was kind of the end for him. That's when it was about over, and I think he had basically no slack to work with going into the next year, and why he was fired so abruptly after that Viking game. The Dolphins, week 1, smoked by MVP candidate Daniel Jones. Since then, they played the Bills, or they played the Patriots. Pretty close. I think the Patriots are a feisty team. They played the Bills very close. The Bills are a Super Bowl contender. More than that, though, I don't think they're the disaster I imagined they were going to be after that opener. However, I don't think they're very good. However, I hate the matchup for the Jets. I mean, what the Dolphins do with the speed of A-Chain, Waddle, Tyreek Hill, even Tua with the issues that he has, if Jermaine Johnson can't go, the Jets can't run with anyone right now. They struggle and they're overthinking, which misdirections and motions are just going to amplify. I have a bad feeling about this one. It's early, but I have a very, very bad feeling about how this game could potentially go, because while I liked the matchup versus the Bucs, I do not like how it looks on paper for the Jets versus the Dolphins, even though the Dolphins have their issues.
So what I would say is, like, the Dolphins, if you want to look at this as a chance for the Jets to have a bounce-back game, it's the Dolphins by EPA have the worst defense in the NFL, and I just pulled it up in terms of rushing. They are 29th in rushing defense. So, like, in theory, this should be a good matchup for the Jets offense. If you just look at those facts, the Jets rush defense is 24th in yards per game, just as a fact. But that's the flip side of it is, no matter what you thought about Mike McDaniel, this Dolphins offense, or this Dolphins team, how bad they are, how bad this is a win for the Jets, they still have Tyreek Hill, they still have Jalen Waddle, they still have Devon A-Chain. Like, those are three really fast, unbelievable athletes, and the Jets have struggled with worse athletes than that through 3 games. I mean, they made James Cook is fast, but he is not A-Chain fast, and they made James Cook look like an absolute stud. And so my concern is the defense's ability to stop that offense. If Justin Fields is out there, I do think this running game can get going against the Dolphins, but, I'm still in the I need to see it stage. I need to see that this team is capable of beating anybody, let alone somebody that has the talent on offense that the Dolphins have. I think Tua is beatable. I don't think he's amazing, but he's an accurate, quick thrower of the football, and the Dolphins are good at making plays after the catch, and the Jets have struggled with tackling. So in terms of that, I totally agree with the matchup. But if you want to say the Jets offense can have not a get-right game, but a Steelers-esque performance, like, this would be the week to do it. And so, I just think there's so much pressure on this Jets team to win this game, because being 0-3 and the way they've lost, and then all the way they talked after this last game about the not moral victory, or however you phrased it, like, they they need to come out and show that they've made strides. They're an 0-3 team going against an 0-3 team. If you walk out of that stadium 0-4, I don't care how you did it. That is just not going to be acceptable. So, like, they need to win this game. Like, I don't know if must win is a thing you can say this early in the season, but it feels like that for an 0-3 Jets team.
Yeah, no, this is as must win gets, because the Jets aren't making. What is it? It's 5 teams in NFL history have made the playoffs at 0-3. Now the Jets are one of them in 1981, but the Jets aren't making the playoffs at 0-3. That's not happening. But 0-4 is embarrassing. I mean, that's getting to where Adam Gase was his first year, where the Jet fans were hiring planes and staging protests outside the facility asking for him to be fired. Like that's where we're getting to at 0-4, especially if they're just beat up, and the defense that's supposed to be good is now the biggest weakness. My biggest concern here, Zach, is I just don't think the Jets can run with the Dolphins. I think they can score with them on offense. I don't think the Dolphin defense is scary in any way, shape, or form, but I don't see how this Jets defense, which has been such a disaster to this point this year, is going to be able to stop and slow Miami. The key is going to be Jermaine Johnson being healthy and playing. And
Quincy.
2, they're going to need to create turnovers. They need to steal possessions. They need to make Tua do some of the bad things that Tua has done. So with that said, Jets heading to Miami, 2.5-point underdogs. They've been underdogs every single game this season. Brooke did not do her picks on camera because she was in a very big mood today. I actually have the videos of her just laying on the couch screaming at me, trying to get her to pick. However, as she was having lunch, I held the 2 sheets in front of her and asked her. She picked the Dolphins plus 2.5. Not like that's a great or bad sign. She's currently winless picking. Her dad is also winless picking, 0-3 so far. I, though, am also going to take the Miami Dolphins minus 2.5. I like them to win this game. I don't like the matchup on paper for the Dolphins offense. I think they're going to have a lot of points, and I think the Jets will be able to score on Miami. I don't know if the Jets can score as much as Miami is going to be able to score on them.
I'm 2-1, right? Because I believe I'd said Jets plus 7.5.
Jets
Nice.
last week, yeah.
Off to a good start. Yeah, I'll say Dolphins minus 2.5 as well. I just coming out of this game, I don't feel good. I'm curious to see what the vibe will be this week, and I'll get a better read for as we get later in the week predictions wise. But I feel like the Jets are going to have a hard time with that Dolphins offense because the Jets defense has been awful. So
I agree, man. I agree. All right, well, Zach, it's been fun, hasn't it? It has been fun. When we started doing the show, I knew it wasn't going to be a great year, but I thought they were going to. I thought it was going to be better than it's been. Unfortunately, it's been a little bit worse than what I expected it to be. But who knows? If the Jets are going to get a win, I mean, the winless Dolphins, you would think on paper looks like one of those, but suddenly the paper doesn't usually favor the Jets too often. All right, this is Jets Final Drive. He is Zack Rosenblatt. Thank you guys for joining and watching wherever you guys are watching us. That is across SNY's digital platforms. If that is X, we love you guys. If that is Facebook, we love you guys. If that is SNY.TV, we love you guys. If that is YouTube, we really, really love you guys just because you can interact with us throughout the show. I say this every week, and it holds true. If you are going to watch us on YouTube or any of those platforms, make sure you subscribe and follow SNY on them. Make sure you follow me, Connor Hughes, and Zack Rosenblatt as well. YouTube's pretty great, though, to follow us over there because not only will you get Jets Final Drive, you're also going to get Jets Mailbag, which is my other digital show with Janae Coakley, which is coming your way later this week. We compile questions throughout the week about the Jets, and then we answer those questions on the mailbag. So that's a fun one to get involved in, and we hope that you guys join that show. You also, on that program, get Mets content, Yankees content, the Putback with Ian Begley, and so much other stuff. So make sure you follow us there. Zach, there's some places they can follow you, right? Badlands Flight Plan, twice a week podcast, right? Plugged yourself,
correct.
My friend.
Yeah, well, we did our first pod early this morning. I was still in Tampa. It's been a long day. And then on Thursday we'll do our preview pod. But yeah, you can find me there and at The Athletic, where we'll have a bunch of content this week as well.
You know how, the Emmys, they play the music when they want you to walk off stage? My monitors just went off, so that means it's time to go. For Zack Rosenblatt, I am Connor Hughes. Special thanks to our producers, Brian Pincus, Sam Kendall. I'm finally going to get Sam's name right. Brian Pincus. Prinkett. Are you sure? Because I have Pincus here.
No, I'm making fun of you for saying it wrong.
You can't do that. You can't do that to me. Sam Kendall. Sam, I got your name right this time. Sam. It says Candell. I'm screwing up either way. I
wrong
wrote
as
it
he's
phonetically,
breaking his
and I still
victory.
messed it up. Oh, my goodness. We're off the rails here. Zach Rosenblatt, Connor Hughes, Sam Candell, Brian Pincus, Corey Palmer, and executive producer Jeff Goldman. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching Jets Final Drive. We'll see you next week.